Welcome to Azeroth United, a weekly podcast about World of Warcraft. My name is Denethar, and I am your host.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Today is Tuesday, August 20th, and this is episode 49 of Azeroth United. We've got a great show for you today. We're going to be covering some of the lead-up news to the War Within. There's been quite a lot of buzz from Blizzard on that, and we'll get into all that stuff. And we'll be doing a little bit of a retrospective on WoW Remix. Really, I just want to talk about the way that it was received and kind of my thoughts on where it's going to go and how the game format's going to what the future of that is going to look like. I know we've already talked about that in the past, but now that it's over, we can give it a more thorough examination. So that's kind of where we're going. So, so that's going to be our show for today. So pull up a chair, sit back, relax, and enjoy. And as always, if you have any questions or comments about the podcast, or if you have a particular topic that you'd like to hear discussed, please email us at azerothunitedpod@gmail.com. Also, if you are so inclined and you are enjoying the show, please do consider giving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. That really helps out the distribution. So you could just give it a rating, or you could write a review. Either one would be helpful. If you write a review, I'll read it on the air. And that'll be pretty cool. All right, before I get into all of the news, I will do a quick rundown of what I got up to last week in World of Warcraft. For me, it was a lot of the same, running some Radiant Echoes, trying to do some last minute cleanup on Mists of Pandaria Remix. So I realized that one of my characters that I had, it was my hunter, that I had leveled up and then abandoned because I started playing my Holy Paladin. She had like 90,000 bronze just sitting on her. And I was like, well, there's no sense in upgrading gear at this point. So I just went through and I bought all the toys that I could and all the mounts that I could. And, I went through and looked at some of the sets. To be perfectly honest, most of the Mists of Pandaria sets are not really my favorite. They're okay. I don't know. I grabbed the ones that I really liked, or had a component that I was like, oh, that's cool. Like there's monk shoulders that have little orbs that go around the shoulders. I was like, all right, I'll grab those. But for the most part, it was really just the mounts and the toys and whatever I could get my hands on. And then I had to make sure everybody was in good shape for the transition that occurred this morning. So, but we'll get into all that later on. But as far as the Dragonflight, or I guess pre-patch version of the game, it did a lot of Radiant Echoes. So basically what I did was I got all my tunes leveled up. So I have 20, I think it's 23 now. 23 level 70s, which is not, I mean, I saw somebody on the Starting Zone Discord that had like 60 or 63 or something like that, which that's kind of nuts. But hey, man, you do you. It's all good. My big thing was I wanted one of each class on each of my accounts. So I ended up with one of the accounts is missing a rogue and an evoker, and one of the accounts is missing a monk. So those are my 3 that I still need to get going. I still do have 4 boosts. I have 2 level 60 boosts and 2 level 70 boosts. So, I mean, I guess I could boost a character, but I don't know. We'll see how that goes. I'm not a big fan of boosting, but and like I talked about last week, if they make it so that you could play a Drakthir rogue, yeah, I'll do that. And I might even boost a Drakthir rogue, because honestly, I don't really feel like leveling a rogue, especially not after the pre-patch event is over. So, I'll probably go down that road. I also, after I got everybody to 70, and I was working on getting some gear, because quite honestly, I didn't feel like I was getting enough currency. I know some people were like, oh man, I got all my characters geared up. I wasn't getting any drops. I was getting very little currency. So I went through and I bought out as much as I could, but I realized I'm going to have to be really judicious with what I buy. So I'd rather get the drops and then towards the end of the event, go through and buy out the vendor with whatever currency I have left. So I don't know. I feel like a good pre-patch event should include you getting a lot of gear. for your alts. And I don't think this one's giving enough gear. So maybe I just got unlucky. I don't know. But either way, it was they needed gear. I said last week, my warlock had level 1 gloves at 64 or whatever. So I got her to 70. I got her some gear. She's got real gloves now. So what I did was I had to actually go through and do time rifts and the last hurrah, and then I had to do whatever the easiest ones, like do the feast if it's up, do Dragon's Bane Keep if it's up. I didn't bother with the hunt because nobody's doing the hunt, and so I'd be doing it by myself on a character who's under geared. That's no fun. And then the Dream Surge is a really good one. So the Dream Surge and the Time Rifts in particular, because you can buy a piece of Adventurer level gear with those. So if you have a character who's got, maybe they've got Shadowlands gear, or maybe they've got BFA gear, or maybe you leveled them from scratch and they've got whatever gear you started with at level 1. I would at least do your last hurrah, and then while you're doing that, you'll get your currency from the Time Rift, and then also do a Dream Surge, just collecting your 100 Dream Surge, because then you can buy another piece of gear. And if you have any of that Dream Surge Coalescence laying around, you can use that to buy Explorer level gear. So it's a really quick way to gear out a character if you're not getting the drops for the Dalaran Defender set. So, which I was not getting. So that's basically what I did. And then I took my Death Knight, Denethar, my Death Knight, onto. I did a normal raid. I wanted to get him a Frost spec set up for the War Within. I wanted to have it ready to go. And I know that everything is going to change in the next couple of weeks, but I was like, I haven't played Frost since season 1. I don't really know what I'm doing. So I had to go through. I got that set up, practiced on the target dummy, and then I was able to go and I did a normal Amir Drasil. Was it Amir Drasil or was it Vault? It was Amir Drasil. I did a normal Amir Drasil, which was fine. I was generally in the top 3 damage, but I didn't feel good about it, mostly just because I didn't know what I was doing for half the time. It's like, at one, do I use my cooldowns? Do I group them all together? Do I separate them? Not a lot of good info on that. I'm sure all the guides are going to be coming out over the next couple weeks as people are leveling up their characters. And hey, here's how you play your character level 80 with hero talents and all that sort of thing. So I will definitely be keeping an eye out for something like that, because, that's one of the things for me is I don't spend a lot of time theory crafting the game. I do some to some degree, but at this point, it's so complicated for me. You have so many spell combinations that you can do, so many things that you can do in a certain order or do them in a certain way with a certain cooldown, and they do things better. I have a hard time with that because I can't calculate, so I have to go to like Icy Veins or Wowhead, which I hate having to do, but that's where I end up going. And I look up the rotation and I go, oh, I'm supposed to be throwing this in there. Got it. That makes sense. It's not intuitive at all. And that's something that's really frustrating to me, especially on a character that I've played for a long time. When they change things up, it makes it really hard to just jump back in after a long time. So, I don't know. I wish that the game did a better job of teaching you how to play in a high level capacity and not have to rely on a handful of people who are going through and theory crafting all this stuff and then putting out a YouTube video on it. So, all right. I think that was it. Oh, I moved my Death Knight into a new guild because I want to try and raid. So we'll see how that goes. I'm trying to go into it with eyes wide open and realizing that, okay, there's no guarantee I'm going to get – one, there's no guarantee I'm going to get a raid spot. And two, there's no guarantee that this guild's even going to raid. I mean, who knows? So many guilds live and die by the ebb and flow of an expansion. So new expansion comes out, new guilds show up, old guilds die out. That's just how it goes. So, but with the cross roam guilds, I was hoping to be able to get something. So we'll see how that goes. I'll keep that updated. All right, that's enough of that. Needless to say, I got up to a bunch, and I'm very excited about the War Within. So let's just get right into it.
It's time for the news.
In Blizzard news, so most of the news is going to be based on these. There's a few videos that were released by Blizzard. Well, I'll go over the one hotfix change that I want to talk about first, and then we'll we'll go through all these WoWcast and the Alleria video. So yesterday on the 19th, Blizzard hotfixed Chaos Brand and Arcane Intellect and changed them from 5% buffs to 3% buffs. So it's a slight nerf. And by slight, I mean that's kind of a slap in the face nerf. So Chaos Brand is obviously from Demon Hunters and Arcane Intellect from Mages. And these both affect, I think Chaos Brand affects the amount of magical damage that the mob takes, and Arcane Intellect increases the amount of intellect for the character, which increases their casting spell damage. So this is really only for casters, boomkins, elemental shamans, healers, mages, priests, warlocks, and I think that's it. Oh, evokers. I'm like, there's one more. I'm not thinking of it. And so this is coming on. There's been a lot of discussion about raid buffs and who should have raid buffs and who shouldn't, and what defines a raid buff. And because some classes like a druid has a killer raid buff. You love the druid raid buff. You have to have a druid in your M+, or I'm sorry, in your mythic raid. Some are okay. The evoker one is okay. The hunter one, honestly, hunter mark is okay. It's good. It kind of helps right off the bat, but a lot of bosses have phased fights. So if you are doing something that happens at the beginning of the fight, it doesn't really matter. So that buff is kind of wasted. So, I mean, it just depends. It depends on the boss fights. And to be perfectly honest, I haven't done any of the boss fights on the beta. I just did dungeons and leveling and delves. So I don't even know what the boss fights look like. I just know that I've never been thoroughly impressed with that raid buff from the hunter. So do all classes need a raid buff? Sure. Why not? Give everybody something. I mean, Death Knights had a raid buff for a long time, Horn of Winter, and then it got taken away, and then it never got given back. So I don't know. I think Death Knights have a lot of utility, but it has been pointed out by a lot of high-end players, raiders, and Mythic Plusers. If you're going to bring a Death Knight, you're better off bringing a Blood Death Knight because they're very tanky and they still do high damage. So I don't know. I don't know what's the right answer there. I just know that a lot of people are talking about this right now, and quite honestly, it's annoying. I'm just going to tell the truth. It's annoying. I wish that there was a way for Blizzard to make the game perfectly equal, but there's not. You'd have to make it so homogenous that you might as well not have classes. So I don't know. I feel like this is it's much ado about nothing. So anyway. Okay. So the Blizzard gave us, so we got 2 new WoWcasts. We had one last week and we had one that came out today actually. And then we got the Alleria animation video, which was stellar. It was absolutely chef's kiss. We'll talk about all that. So let's start with the first WoWcast video that came out. Well, this is actually the second WoWcast video. There was one that came out the week before, which was Raids, Dungeons, PvP, and Delves. And that was with Morgan Day, Laura Sardina, and John Mark Hemphill. So, which was good. I did kind of dog on them a little bit about their more scripted answers, but I mean, that's, like I said, it's a scripted interview that is designed to give information to the players who don't feel like reading a blog post. They'd rather watch a video. Makes perfect sense to me. I watched the video, I skimmed the blog post. So, yeah, it's kind of how it goes. But this one was, so we had Associate Game Director Maria Hamilton, who I'm sure you've seen before. She's a great resource on the WoW team. You have Associate Game Director Morgan Day back again for his second of these WoWcasts. And then you have Cinematic Narrative Director Terran Gregory. Now, Terran Gregory is famous for his cutscenes and cinematics that he's had his hand on. He doesn't make them himself. I mean, he does make them, but he's a director now, so he just kind of guides everybody else with it. So, but he's been very influential in a lot of the storytelling that WoW has done over the past 20 years. So, this was a really interesting one. They talked a lot about story and how the story was being delivered to the players through the cinematic experience, through the game experience, through the design of the world. It was really they really touched on the idea that it's a collaborative effort, but each of these teams has to go through and go, hey, here's something cool we want to do. And then they have to work with the other teams, and the other teams go, yeah, we can do that. Or no, let's not do that. They also talked about some of the little attention to detail that they put into some of these components where you might not even realize it. And Morgan Day brought out the example, which I thought was really interesting. In Hollowfall, there's a giant crystal that is basically the sun in there. It's the only light source they have. And all the plants are turned to face the crystal because it's the only light source. So our plants here do that, but since the sun moves across the sky, or more realistically, we are moving around the sun, they can kind of track the sun from their position on Earth. But that doesn't happen because the crystal in Hollowfall is static. It just stays in one place. So all those plants are just permanently turned towards that light source, which is just really interesting. But they talked about the design of the zones and how they each have a distinct feel, which, I mean, that's a very World of Warcraft thing. For each of the zones to have their own distinct feel, their own distinct design. They also talked about the verticality of the zones and how you're basically just going down underground. But within that, they can create this expansive world like Hollowfall, where it doesn't feel like you're in a cave. It doesn't feel like you're digging underground and trying to, you feel like you're in a big open zone. So, yeah, it was a very interesting interview. This one I would definitely recommend. I felt like you could give each of these three individuals their own interview and it would be good and entertaining. But unfortunately they have to limit them. Just, you got to keep it short. So, because I'd love to hear more from Maria Hamilton on her ideas for the design of the world and how she's building some of these things, and how her team is building some of these things, and the decisions that they make on some of those. She talked about how all of the Arathi have all of their furniture bolted to surfaces because they arrived on airships. And if you're on an airship and the airship moves, then furniture is going to go sliding across. So they have all their furniture bolted down. Well, that shows in game. And like I said, that attention to the detail, it was really important. It really helps with the immersion. And that's one thing that I will say for this expansion is that while Dragonflight felt like not quite going through a dream, but it definitely felt a lot less you're going through a real place. This feels like a real lived-in place, especially going through Isle of Dorn and the Ringing Deep. So, I would say, definitely check out this video. It was a really good one. I really enjoyed it. And I hope they do more of these, even though it's obviously scripted, but they're entertaining and informative. And it really does a good job of showing how they go through that design process and kind of how they determine what they're going to present to the player base. Because ultimately, they're just making things up and then we're taking it in. So whatever they decide to make up is what we're going to play. So it's good that the people making this stuff up are good at it. So, all right. Speaking of people who make things up and are really good at it, we had another one that was released today. And this is with Chris Metzen. So this was hosted by Scott Johnson. He's a podcaster. I think his podcast is The Instance. And obviously, this is a one-on-one interview with Chris Metzen. This one goes deep. And Chris Metzen, obviously, he's a great interview. And this was more of a actual interview rather than a WoWCast scripted interview style. Chris went into some interesting things, and some of the things that I will say I found the most interesting. One thing was he mentioned that he joined the team while the War Within was in production, so while they had already started on the War Within. So I think there was a lot of speculation when Chris Metzen came back, and I voiced this as well last year when I talked about this, that Chris Metzen showed up and said, "Nope, throw out all your ideas. Here's what we're doing. Here's what the new expansion is going to be." And he didn't do that. He did clean up some of the ideas and give it more soul. pun intended. Give it more soul to have the story be something personal, because it's the 20th anniversary of World of Warcraft. It's the 30th anniversary of the Warcraft franchise. This is a big deal. And he is the franchise creative director. He's not the World of Warcraft creative director. He is the creative director for all of Warcraft. So whether it's a real-time strategy game or World of Warcraft or a Warcraft Rumble or something else, animated show or a Warcraft 2 movie or something like that. He's the creative director for all of that. And so I don't want to say that Chris Metzen has the last say on a lot of things, because I don't think he does have the last say, but he definitely holds a lot of power and a lot of weight in that. So, this one was really interesting. One of the other things that he mentioned was talking about how his characters have embodied him at different parts of his life. And he mentioned about Thrall having gray hair in the War Within cinematic, and how it kind of hit him like, wow, this guy's getting older. And if, for those not aware, Thrall is famously voiced by Chris Metzen. So it's one of the reasons why Thrall kind of retired after a while, and because Chris Metzen left the company, and so he had to come back and do guest spots for the voice. But it's a really interesting interview. One of the other things that he mentioned was that when talking about the sword in Silithus, Sargeras' sword that has been there since the end of Legion, he threw out a hint about what the future might hold for that sword. He mentioned that it's probably not going to get removed from Azeroth until at least 13 dot something, which would be the last Titan. And that he gives a little teaser that we are not prepared to see how that's handled. So obviously that's pointing to Illidan. Illidan's famous line, "You are not prepared," in the Burning Crusade trailer that came out in, was that 2007 or 2006? That's I mean, a lot of people speculated that Illidan was going to come back in some capacity. If the Titans are coming back, Sargeras is Illidan, Sargeras is jailer. He's Illidan's hanging with blah, 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 blah. The long and the short of it is they're going to bring Illidan back in some capacity. I would love it if it was Sargeras comes in with Illidan riding on his back, Ant-Man style. But however they decide to do it, I'm sure it'll be really cool, and it'll be a really good nostalgia moment. When I found out that they were bringing Illidan back for Legion back in, was that 2005 or 2015? I was kind of bummed, because I was like, oh, come on, stop bringing this guy back for every... he was in Warcraft 3, and then they brought him back for the Burning Crusade, and then we killed him, but now he's not dead. Oh, he's back. And I was like, whatever. But Illidan was one of the best parts of Legion by far. The Rejection of the Gift cinematic with Illidan, where he kills Zira the Naru, probably one of the all-time best cinematics that Blizzard has ever produced, or honestly any video game for that matter. It was good. So yeah, getting Illidan back in some capacity, I think will be great. Will he show up and kind of drive the story along like he did in Legion, the last few patches of Legion? I don't know. We'll see. We will see. All right, and the final thing I'll mention from the Chris Metzen interview, because like I said, this one was really interesting. He did mention that they're already having conversations about, so if the War Within is patch 11 dot whatever, and then Midnight is 12 dot, and then the last Titan is 13, then going beyond that, he said they're already having conversations about what 14, 15, 16 are going to look like, which we're talking 8-10 years down the road, which is great, because that means that there's a future for World of Warcraft. And a lot of people have been really nervous, like, oh, well, what's the last Titan going to be? Is that going to be the end of World of Warcraft? Are we going to wake up in Elwyn Forest or Durotar, and now we've got to... No, they're going to keep us going. We're going to be good. We're covered. Blizzard has got us covered. We're okay. So, there's that. All right. Let's... Whew. All right. That was, Chris Metzen. He's an interesting guy. You know what? Excuse me. One thing that I will say about Chris Metzen is that he's definitely rocking the dad bod these days. He's really buff. He's got the shaved head and the big beard, and just a little bit of a belly going on there. It's like, okay, yeah, he's a dad now. He's got that. He's got that go. You know, go back and look at the pictures of Chris Metzen from early World of Warcraft, 2005, 2006. It looks very different. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out. The last video that we're going to talk about today is the Alleria. It is, let me give you the correct name, Alleria Light and Shadow. So this was a anime-esque, I don't want to say it's an anime style because it's not exactly like a Japanese anime type cartoon, but it definitely gave that vibe. It's like a Western anime, basically. So it told the story of Alleria starting at the Second War and the invasion of Quel'Thalas by the Horde, and how Alleria helped drive the Horde back, and then eventually left to go join the Alliance to help fight against the Horde. So it dives into, first off, it dives into the relationship between Alleria and Sylvanas. So for those of you who are not caught up on the lore, Alleria and Sylvanas and Varisa, but nobody really cares about Varisa. Alleria and Sylvanas are sisters. So Alleria, as the oldest sister, was supposed to become the Ranger General, and she famously turned it down, and ended up being a Ranger Captain, and Sylvanas became the Ranger General of Silverman. So, yeah, they still fought side by side and helped defend their homeland and all that sort of thing, which is great. But Alleria perceived the threat of the Horde as being a more existential threat to their survival rather than a direct threat of an attack by the Horde. She felt like the existence of the Horde needed to be addressed. Now, Sylvanas didn't like that. She wanted Alleria to stay with her. And Alleria's whole thing was, did I abandon my sister to her fate? If I had done something differently, would things have turned out differently for Sylvanas? Which, of course, no, because Arthas still showed up and he still had Frostmourne. So there really wasn't much that Sylvanas could do at that point. Although I do wonder if Alleria had been there and Arthas had turned both of them into Banshees, what would that have been like? Whew, dual Banshees? Oh my gosh. Just the thought of that would have been wild. Because first of all, I don't think they would have joined the Horde. I think that if Sylvanas had taken over the Scourge, or Sylvanas took over the Scourge by herself and became the leader and kind of led them, if Alleria had been there, none of that would have happened. Sylvanas would not have become the leader of the Horde. The two of them might have gone on to fight Arthas by themselves or some other capacity. But yeah, there's no way that there's no way that things would have turned out the way they did if Alleria had still been around. But she wasn't around, because what happened was she left to go join the Alliance and fight against the Horde, which the Alliance eventually beat the Horde back and defeated them at Blackrock Mountain, where Anduin Lothar was famously slain. And then as the Horde retreated through the Dark Portal, an expeditionary force, including Alleria Terralian, her new boyfriend, or her new husband, and Khadgar, went through the portal to close it from the other side. Because they felt like if we close the portal from this side, they'll just reopen it again. But if we go through the portal and close it on the other side, then they can't. But then they're stuck in wherever that takes them, which obviously we know now is Draenor or Outland. So, yeah, Alleria left to go do that. And, she, before all of that happened during the war, she, obviously her and Terralian had a baby boy named Eretor. And Eretor was left with his auntie Varisa and his uncle Ronan. And while mommy and daddy went through the Dark Portal, which they didn't see him for thousands of years because they were busy fighting the Legion as the Army of the Light. So anyway, I'm getting really deep into this. So yeah, Alleria now fighting the Legion as part of the Army of the Light, which we saw at the end of the think it was the last patch of Legion. We got all of the lore for that. And it's hard. Fighting the light is hard. And Alleria started having some difficulty resisting the temptations of the void. So as they're going around through the twisting nether, she felt the void calling to her. She talked to Locust Walker, who said, yeah, it's all good. Go ahead and give in to the void, which I don't know if that's good or not. I don't know if we should trust Locust Walker or not, but she did, and it gave her new powers, but at the cost of what? We don't know. I don't think we truly know the extent of what that cost her and what that is going to. I think we're going to find that out in The War Within. We're going to get a little bit more of that story. I really hope we don't get Alleria as a raid boss, but I feel like this is kind of setting that up. Like, yeah, we're going to get Void Alleria as a raid boss. We might not kill her. It might just be oh no, we have to destroy the void monster that's inside of her or something. I don't know. I hate that. I hate the hero turned evil raid boss thing. It's like, oh my god. Okay, thanks, Blizz. Anyway, is a really good animation. A lot of people online have been clamoring for, hey, Blizzard, take this and turn it into an animated series a la Arcane and just count your money. And to those people, I will say, I guarantee you they're already working on it in some capacity. But that sort of thing takes time. I mean, Arcane took 2+ years in between seasons. So if you're starting from scratch, yeah, it's going to take a while to develop. I think Arcane took 10 years to develop or something crazy like that. 8 years. I forget. I'd have to ask. But yeah, that's we'll see how that goes. So, all right. I will have links to all of these videos in the show notes if you want to check them out. There's not a lot of regular just news going on. Honestly, we don't even have a weekly bonus event in Dragonflight this week. There's no like, oh, it's the World Quest event or it's the dungeon event. There's nothing. There's just no event. So we're going to get, if you're listening to this on the day that it's uploaded, we'll get early access starting on Thursday, the 22nd, which is tomorrow at this point. And then we'll get the actual launch of the expansion on the 26th. So, yeah, there's no more time. We're done. It's time's up. Get ready to go to Khazalgar and start chasing down Xal'atath. I did want to mention this because I forgot this with the Chris Metzen interview. He did say that we will be dealing with Xal'atath throughout the Worldsoul saga. He didn't say she'll be there at the very end, but we will be dealing with her throughout. So for the people who were concerned that Xal'atath would be a raid boss and we'd kill her in the first expansion, no, that's not going to happen. We will be dealing with Xal'atath for many years to come. So the people who were disappointed that we didn't get a Xal'atath cosplays this year, Taliesin, I'm looking at you. We're going to get one probably. We'll get them next year because there will probably be a BlizzCon next year. So, all right. So that's it for the news. And so now we're going to move on to our main topic of the week.
It's time for the main topic of the week.
So we just finished up WoW Remix Mists of Pandaria. And by all accounts, it was a huge smash hit. People loved it. I played it. I loved it. I thought it was great. There was many different ways that you could play WoW Remix Mists of Pandaria, or MoP Remix as I like to call it. You could just power up and go through and kill stuff because it's fun. You could go through and collect all the mounts. You could collect all the toys. You could collect all the transmog. You could do all of the above. You could get achievements. You could build reputation. There were so many different things you could do in this. You could go through the storyline. If a lot of people who were like, hey, I started playing in WoD or I started playing in Legion and I've never done Mists of Pandaria and this was great. Yeah, Mists of Pandaria had a great storyline. It had really good raids. It had interesting characters that were new to World of Warcraft. It had interesting villains. Of course, the final villain being Garrosh was to me, it was a little bit of a letdown. Whatever. Again, I don't like the hero turns evil, and even though Garrosh was a dick, pardon my language, that didn't necessarily mean he had to be a bad guy. Or turn into a raid boss. But he did, and we killed him. Or we defeated him. We didn't kill him. Thrall killed him. Or Thrall forced the elements to kill him, more realistically, which is why the elements were like, you know what, Thrall, we don't like you anymore. So, I thought that, and I've mentioned this before, but I felt like Mists of Pandaria was the perfect expansion to do this. It had a lot of mounts. It had interesting mounts. It had interesting toys. This was one of the first expansions where Blizzard was like, here, take a ton of toys. And they did. They gave us a lot of different interesting toys. Now, a lot of them were usable only in Pandaria, which is fine. But we got a lot. And it was really cool to be able to go through the vendor and be like, oh, I don't have this one. Or I have that one. Or I don't have this one. The transmog sets, and as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, the transmog sets are not my favorite. There's a few that I kind of like, but for the most part, it's this weird intersection between modern gear where you have everything looks really, it's not high def, it's not high res, but it's higher res, compared to like the vanilla 2-pixel armor pieces. But it was in this weird middle grounds where a lot of things were rendered more, but you still had a lot of just a generic piece of gear with a texture map over it. Which it looks cool still, but it's not the Legion armor. It's not the Battle for Azeroth, Shadowlands, etc. armor pieces. Some would say that's a good thing. A lot of people don't like the way that the transmog is handled now, and honestly, I kind of agree. But that being said, there were some really cool transmogs that a lot of people wanted to pick up. There was pets that you could get. Mists of Pandaria started, or one of the systems introduced in Mists of Pandaria was the pet battle system. So they introduced a ton of pets that you could tame in Mists of Pandaria. So there you go. It's a really good one. The power-up system in Mists of Pandaria Remix was really cool because not only were you able to get super powered, but you could make your alts super powered too. So the more characters you created, each character was going to be more powerful than your first character, or each subsequent character would be more powerful because of the Time Runner's Cloak. Also, you would get gems and different tinkers and different things that you could put into your gear that would buff your gear and give you basically superpowers. And a lot of these gems were not soulbound, so you could just trade them or sell them to other people, which was kind of interesting. So yeah, they really put a lot into this. One of the things that was really interesting to me was how quickly they pivoted on some of their design choices. Here's what we're doing. And then everyone went, I don't like that. And they're okay, we're going to fix it. There you go. How about that? And I went, oh, okay, that's a lot better. The cloak threads, the bronze acquisition, they fixed bugs quickly and they penalized players for taking advantage of, a faulty game mechanic like the frog farming. So, was there a lot of things that Blizzard learned from this event? I'm sure that they have gone through and they're probably doing a postmortem where they're going, okay, well, let's write down what worked and what didn't work and what players liked and what players didn't like. That was a big thing. But for me, I felt like the things that worked really well was the way that you got gear was good. I wish that there had been a better way to upgrade the gear and not upgrade it because we had a way to upgrade it. I would have liked a way to maybe modify the gear and make it more functional for a particular, if you get a piece of gear and it's got mastery on it and you're playing a spec that doesn't really need mastery, it's kind of a waste. Especially in this style of game like Remix. I was playing a Holy Paladin, and so mastery was like the last stat that I wanted because it's like, I'm not healing anybody. Everyone's running around one-shotting stuff. I want to hit things harder. I want to run faster. I want to have more health. So yeah, I think I think they could have modified the way that the gear stats were introduced and handled a little bit better. But I don't feel like it's necessarily a complaint. It's more of just I hope to provide some helpful criticism to Blizzard in terms of what I think would make this better going forward. I feel like the leech on the gear was kind of unsatisfying. The speed was good. And then they gave us armor gems, which I didn't feel like were very good. So all in all, I feel like they could streamline some of the gear and some of the way that all that's handled. They could streamline some of the upgrades, some of the gems, get rid of some of those, the gem sockets. We don't need that many. That was way too many gems. Give us some 5 or 6 really powerful ones instead of, 12 that we had. I don't need to try and figure out 12 of these gems. I ended up just having to go to Wowhead because honestly, trying to understand what all of these things do, it was a lot. So I would say, yeah, reduce the number of power-up gems, but make them more powerful. Make them more like Torghast powers where you go, ooh, this is really cool. Or make it so that there's only a handful in the game, but you can get them multiple times. So if you remember, if you played in Shadowlands, in Torghast, there was a lot of power-ups that you could get, and they would stack multiple times, making your character more and more and more powerful. The one I always liked was the shaman had a healing rain that did damage to the target. And if you had enough stacks of it, you would just put healing rain down it and everything would just die across the board, which was really cool. I would have loved something like that in MoP Remix, but we didn't get that. So, and that's specific to a class. So I guess they're trying to make something more generic. So I get it. Anyway, doesn't matter. I'm just kind of giving my thoughts on the remix game mode and what I think that they should do, going forward. And I feel like, in this case, it's just hey, look at it. You don't have to do anything, but it's just to look at it. Maybe see what the options are for creating a smaller number of more powerful power-ups within the game that you can put onto your gear. I feel like it wasn't necessary to hide some of the gear behind achievements. I get it. They want people to do the quests, but to be perfectly honest, in a fun game mode, there's going to be people who want to do the quests, and there's going to be people who just run the raids and the dungeons and just want the gear. Why do we need to gatekeep that? Is people just want the gear? Let them just get the gear. If people want to go through and do every single quest, let them do that. It's not like you're making new quests. Yeah, they could have done a little bit more there as far as opening some things up. I do understand having some restrictions, but I felt like there was a few too many for my liking. And that's fine. Putting the Garrosh shoulders in there was a brilliant move. And I know some people said, oh, they should have made them recolored versions of it, or they should have made them whatever. Look, if you are going to be weird about something that you got and you don't want other people to get it, you're bad. You're bad. I've never gotten anything in World of Warcraft that I thought, well, I sure hope nobody else gets that so I can be cool and unique and special. Now, I have, in moments in the past, I have pulled out a certain mount or a certain toy when everybody's just standing around and showing off their stuff. And so the people can go, oh, that's so cool. But I've never been like, man, if Blizzard makes this available to other people, I'm going to be pissed. Like people were with the Garrosh shoulders. Oh, they should have changed them and made them do the whatever. Settle down. Just let people get cool stuff. That's why we're here. We're here to get cool stuff. That's it. That's the name of the game. So, yeah, that's, I don't know why that is. Why people do that. All right. In other areas, I liked the way that they put the infinite dragonflight scattered throughout the zones. So you kind of had like your base of, oh, that's right, we're sneaking in here. So if you were standing, at least on the Alliance side, I don't know about the Horde side, but on the Alliance side, if you were standing in the main city and you could look through the doorway into where all the infinite dragons are, but you didn't pass through the threshold that activated their or deactivated their disguise, you would just see some pandas in there. And as soon as you walk through the threshold, bloop, it's all dragons, which I thought was pretty cool. So, yeah, I really liked the overall look and feel. They added things to it, like they added a t-shirt on a vendor. They added a tabard on a vendor. They added in the barber shop. Things that people want their characters to look a certain way, whether it's MoP remix or whatever. That's a big part of why we play the game, because we want our characters to look cool. That's why transmog is one of the greatest systems of all time in World of Warcraft, because it makes us look cool, it makes us feel cool. And you do more damage when you feel cool. That's just it's math. It's just math. Now, as far as the future of MoP remix, one of the things that I'll say is that Blizzard kind of teased us with this idea of, hey, you're going to be super powerful. If they're going to do this again, I think they should make it you get super powerful faster. Make the event shorter. Give us 2 months. You get super powered within the first 2 weeks. And then, yeah, it shouldn't take you a month to get to the point where you feel like a badass. You should feel that way pretty quickly, and then you scale up so you can do mythic raids within a couple weeks. I think that would have been a better way to handle it, but that's not what they chose. I know people were able to solo some mythic bosses at the end, but a lot of people should have been able to solo mythic bosses throughout the remix cycle, and I don't think that didn't happen that way. So, what should Blizzard do for the next remix? Well, first of all, they shouldn't do another remix for a while. They should let that one sit and let us start to miss it. And then just when we're starting to get bored in World of Warcraft, whoop, here comes a new remix. There's been some discussion on whether or not there's going to be a season 4 in The War Within, or are we just going to get 3 seasons and out, which is a possibility since they're working on 3 expansions at once. So I could see a situation where after the 3rd season, they just go, okay, well, here's the new expansion. But if you have a 3rd season that is maybe 8 months instead of 6 months, then for those last 2 months, yeah, you have a remix. And so what remix do you do? A lot of people are asking for Legion. And I think that's a really strong choice. I feel like that's the obvious choice. Do a Legion remix. Let people run through those quest lines again. Those quest lines were really good. Let people run through those raids again. Those raids were amazing. Except for the Emerald Nightmare. I really like that one. I don't know. That one was just lame. And I didn't really love Antorus either, honestly. I gotta say, Nighthold was good, and the Tomb of Sargeras was good. So they had 2 good raids. I don't know. Anyway, the dungeons were great. I felt like the Legion dungeon pool was fantastic. Obviously, you've got to figure out how to handle the artifact weapon in a remix style game, but maybe you just give everyone, instead of a cloak, you give everyone their weapon, and the weapon scales up like their artifact weapon scales up like the cloak did. And instead of getting our artifact appearances through the traditional way, we get them through the remix way, which is you have to do X, Y, and Z, and then you get this artifact appearance or something like that. I think that would be pretty cool. Yeah, I like the idea of doing Legion. I like it better than doing Warlords of Draenor. I had initially advocated for Warlords of Draenor because I felt like the quest lines were really good, the dungeons were really good, but there's only a few dungeons, kind of like Mists of Pandaria. So on that note, they're the same, but there's only 3 raids in Warlords of Draenor, and only one of them is a top tier raid, which is Blackrock Foundry. So I don't know. Maybe Warlords isn't the way to go. I feel like you can't really go back to any of the classic games, at least not right now, because we just did those. So nobody's really clamoring for a Wrath of the Lich King remix or a Burning Crusade remix. So you'd have to go the other direction and say, okay, well, do we skip Legion and go to Battle for Azeroth? I mean, I guess you could do that. You could do a BFA remix would actually be kind of fun, because they had really good questing areas. They had really good dungeons, pretty good raids, although you'd need to clean up a little bit of the Battle for Dazara lore. I think. But overall, I think Battle for Azeroth would be a good one. I don't know. Those are really your only three choices: Warlords of Draenor, Legion, and Battle for Azeroth. Because nobody wants a Shadowlands remix, at least not right now. And Dragonflight is, I mean, it's ending in, it's ending functionally in a day and a half. It's ending actually in half a week. So, or 6 days or whatever it is. What's today? Today is Wednesday morning. So, yeah. So it's 5 days. So yeah, you can't do Dragonflight. So I don't know. We'll see. I do think putting something at the end of The War Within would probably be the way to go. I wouldn't want to see anything sooner than that, especially if it's Warlords of Draenor, because really, you're gonna make me sit in my garrison. I don't know. I think that could be fun. They could figure out a way to make it interesting. It is really what it boils down to. So, now, what do I not want to see in a remix going forward? Well, I'll tell you, one thing that I don't want to see in a remix going forward is the high cost of some of these items. Getting these items, that should be fun and easy. Yeah, you need to earn some of these things. You need to put in some time and some effort. But especially if we get Legion, it's not like you're buying any weapons, so you're just getting gear. And there wasn't that many gear pieces, and most people have those all already. The great thing about Mists of Pandaria is that a lot of people didn't have those because they didn't do Mists of Pandaria. I don't know. I don't really feel like there's anything that I would say, oh my gosh, take this out. Give us, okay, yeah. I will say it was too long. 3 months is too long. Give us 2 months or 10 weeks is fine. And then the other thing that I would do is I would say after a certain point, like the halfway point or whatever, give people the opt out. People who are like, hey, I'm done. I did everything in Remix. My character is decked. They're done. Give them the opt out to say, okay, this is a one-way trip. You can't go back to Remix, but you can go to live servers and you'll get a item level, whatever, set of gear, and you can proceed on. Just like they gave the Mists of Pandaria Remix people for 67 gear and 30 slot bags, they could do the same thing based on whatever the item level is at that time, and take people out. Yeah, you could do that, because I think a lot of people were like, I really like my Remix character, but there's nothing to do with them now, so I don't understand the point. So I guess that's the only thing that I would say. Add in a kind of escape clause for players who are like, look, I really, but you have to have done something. Like, all right, you got to run every raid on at least normal, and you've got to have all these achievements and blah 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 blah. Something. You don't want people to say, yeah, I'll move over, and then now they're disappointed because they didn't do any of the stuff in there. Then what's the point of moving your character over? Just go make a new character. If you want a new character, just go make a new character. If you have a Remix character that you've been playing and you're like, I want to move them over to the War Within, well, did you do all the stuff in Remix? Or do you just want to have a new character? Because if that's all you want, yeah, you can just go make a new character. So, yeah, from that standpoint, I'm okay with the gatekeeping there. That's fine. I'll allow it. But other than that, yeah, I think that's really the only thing that I would say. Maybe you could even make it so that you could party up with people who are not in Remix, but you just can't see each other because they're in a completely different phase. So, but you can be in a party together. That's fine. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe that would, from a technical standpoint, that might not work. Do let Alliance and Horde group up together. I hope that's something they're adding into the game just in general, giving Alliance and the Horde the ability to group up through world content. I think would be good. Give them the ability to queue for things together. If you've got a buddy who's Horde and you're an Alliance character and you want to do some heroics together, you can't. Not even just in the Remix mode, but just in general. So I guess it's really not a Remix thing. That's more just a, hey, Blizzard, make it so that people can just group up together. Now, if you want to make, a World of Warcraft, Alliance and Horde have to fight, okay, that's fine. We can do that too. But if this is your friend, it's your friend. It doesn't matter if they're an orc and you're a gnome. It doesn't matter. You guys can still be friends. I'm not going to judge. So, all right. Final thoughts on Remix. I would say that as far as a distraction at the end of a short expansion, and a short season at the end of that expansion, this was a good one. If they had slapped a remix type thing at the end of Siege of Orgrimmar, and then we still had, whatever it was, 14 months of Siege of Orgrimmar, I don't think people would have been as thrilled. They would have been like, oh my gosh, this is the only thing to do in game, and I'm bored with this too. And people were just angrier back then about the state of the game. People are still angry about the state of the game. It's just that I feel like some of that's tempered. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe I'm just projecting, because I love this game and I really enjoy it. So I don't want to say that Blizzard can do no wrong, because they certainly can. But they've been on a pretty good streak lately. So I will say that. Right. All right. I think that's going to wrap up our show for today. Thank you so much for listening. It is always a pleasure and a privilege to get on this microphone and speak to you. As you may or may not have heard, I'm struggling with a little bit of a sore throat, so I had to take many breaks for a drink of water, or in this case, it's vodka. So I'll try not to have any of that show up in the edit, but if it does, I'm sorry. I'm feeling a little under the weather, and I'm really hoping I'm feeling better for early access on Thursday, because I'm pretty excited about that. So, all right. If you want to get a hold of me, you can reach me on Twitter at Denethar. There it goes. I'm at Denethar. You can also sometimes catch me streaming, and I will be doing some streaming for The War Within, so you can catch me streaming on Twitch TV. I'm Denethar01, and you can also catch me sometimes streaming on YouTube. I am at Denethar01 there as well. If you want to get in contact with me and you don't want to go on Twitter, the best way is going to be to go to the Discord server, and I will have a link to the Discord server in the show notes, or you can go to the link tree. It is linktr.ee/Azeroth United, and that'll have the Discord, the Azeroth United Twitter account, the Azeroth United YouTube page, and all that sort of thing. So all of those links are there. We are starting a Patreon. It's taken me some time to set it up, because first of all, Patreon is really protective because it involves money and there's transactions. And so I needed to take a picture of myself holding my ID, pointing to my face, saying it's me, before they allowed me to create the account. So I get everything set up, but I want to go through and I want to make sure that, one, I'm not doing this prematurely and creating something that nobody is asking for, that nobody wants. And two, I want to make sure that I am providing something of value. So before I release that, I will be creating a couple of different tiers, or however I'm going to set it up so that excuse me. However I'm going to set it up so that people know what they're getting, and it's not just, hey, you want to buy me a cup of coffee or want to buy me a beer, which is fine, we can do that, but I'd rather say, hey, if you toss me a couple bucks, then you're going to get this benefit from it, or whatever. So but I'll have more information on that in the weeks to come. I'm going to be a little bit busy with The War Within, as I'm sure everybody else is going to be, so I'll probably have something to say within the next month or so. Maybe in the lull before the season starts, I'll have something out there. So anyway, that's in the future. So like I said, thank you for listening, and we will be uploading this one onto YouTube as well. So if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you for watching. And I hope that you have fun with The War Within. I hope your characters are ready to go. If you haven't picked your main, I don't know what to tell you, but there's been 4 million content creators who have created YouTube videos on how to choose your main for The War Within. So I would definitely check one of those out. So, all right, have fun. remember to be kind and patient with each other, especially during those first few weeks before anything big opens up. You know what? We're all going to be on the same playing field. We're all going to be running around in crappy gear and leveling up and just having fun. So just remember to smile, be good to each other. All right. I love you all, and I'll see you in Azeroth.